Go ahead.
Priscilla and Aquila. Is it Aquila or Aquila?
Aquila.
Aquila. Some of our generation think we should be saying Aquila. When I was in seminary, they taught us how to say all the big names in the Bible. They said when you run across a big name in the Bible, just put your head back and let it fly. Say whatever comes out. He says, because no one really knows anyway. They actually said that only God knows and he ain't telling. So it's Aquila.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you're in my office again this week. You've been referred here by Paul the Apostle. And you guys used to live in Rome, and he met you in Corinth. And you guys actually lived with Paul for a while. Now, I understand you had some children, so today we're going to talk a little bit about raising kids. If you take cows and you put them in a pasture without a fence around them, they will huddle in the middle. If you take children in a playground and you don't put a fence around that playground, they'll huddle in the middle. But if you put a fence around that pasture, those cows will go right to the edge and actually stick their head through the fence and eat the grass on the other side of the fence, because they know that the fence will keep the good in and the bad out. You put a fence around a playground, those kids will play right up against the fence, even though there may be a freeway on the other side of the fence. They know the fence will keep the good in and the bad out. All children need borders and perimeters. All children need fences, especially strong-willed children. We have a guy named James Dobson that talks about two kinds of kids. One is a strong-willed child, and the other is just a real easygoing child. He says, in fact, the easygoing child just likes to be on board. They're born with a smile. He says, a strong-willed child, says it comes out smoking a cigar. They're a strong-willed child. He says it's not right or wrong. It's just different. And a strong-willed child has too much personal power. And they need to know that there's somebody out there that's stronger than they are. I know a man once who was called into his daughter's elementary school, into the office. And he said, "Sir, will you stop abusing your daughter?" And he said, "Well, what do you mean?" He says, "You're not giving her any borders. You're not giving her any perimeters. You're not telling her what she can get away with and what she can't. That's abusive. Tell her what the program is. Tell her where the borders are, the perimeters." He said, "I was trying not to abuse her." He said, "Well, give her some rules and tell her what the consequences are on the other side of that." All kids need to have borders and perimeters. Pam, my wife, has some instructions she gave her sons. She says, "Now, your children need to have borders for their own safety. You need to work out a voice with your kids that says, don't do that anymore. If you keep doing that, there'll be severe consequences." He says, you need to do this for their own safety. They need to have training early on that there's borders. They could be standing next to Niagara Falls, and if you haven't got that kind of control over them, it could be disastrous for them. They could go over the edge. So for their own safety, you need to work out the contract that says, if you continue doing what you're doing, there'll be severe consequences. Do you understand? And the child understands. Do we know what a temper tantrum is? A temper tantrum is when a child is screaming for his life needs. His life needs are not being met. He's saying, am I the strongest person here? Am I in charge? Won't somebody please put a border around me? Won't somebody please stop me? Won't somebody please contain me? And they get louder and louder because literally they're being scared to death because they're the biggest person in the room. Am I the adult here? And so when a parent comes along and contains the child and puts the borders and the perimeters around the child, all of a sudden the child feels loved and protected. Isn't it funny, after you correct a child, they'll come and hug you afterwards? Okay. So this is one of the things that God does with us, He puts borders and perimeters around us. He also gave us churches, and in the churches we have pastors, and pastors are described as the shepherds, and the shepherds keep borders and perimeters around the congregation. We're living in a world where that's getting few and far between. A lot of pastors just don't put the borders around their people. As you have the borders and the perimeters, it makes you feel secure. It makes you feel safe. For whom he loved, the same does he chasten. Well, thanks for being here this week, and we'll pick this up next week. Thank you.